Vanessa's laughter rang through the grand dining room, the sound smooth, effortless, perfectly rehearsed. Her smile, dazzling as ever, radiated warmth, drawing the attention of everyone gathered around the table. She was always good at this, slipping seamlessly into the role of devoted wife, charming daughter-in-law, and impeccable hostess. Tonight was no different. I sat across from her, watching, listening, not speaking much. I rarely did at these gatherings, at least. Not unless I had something worth saying. Instead, I let the evening unfold, observing every glance she threw, every movement of her delicate hands, the way her fingers toyed with the stem of her wineglass when she thought no one was looking. She thought she was in control. She thought I was blind. My fingers hovered over the screen of my phone as the conversation around me swirled, casual, filled with inside jokes and half-told stories from years past. Vanessa was in her element, exchanging knowing smiles with her sister, leaning in conspiratorially to whisper something to her mother. If I hadn't known better, I might have thought she was just another loving wife, happily married, blissfully unaware of any shadow lingering over her perfect little world. But I did know better. I knew everything. The late-night phone calls she thought she had hidden, the careful, calculated excuses, work dinners, spa retreats, just drinks with the girls, the scent of an unfamiliar cologne lingering on her clothes, the way she locked her phone when she never used to before. All of it. Vanessa had spent months playing this game, testing the limits, seeing how far she could go without getting caught. She had convinced herself that she was too clever, too meticulous to slip up, that she had me fooled. She was wrong. I had no intention of confronting her outright. No shouting, no accusations, no messy fights that would give her the chance to twist the narrative, to cry and plead and spin the truth into something palatable for herself. No, that wasn't my style. Instead, I let her keep playing, let her dig herself deeper, let her think she had won. And then, when the moment was right, I would ask a single question. Just one. A question she wouldn't be able to answer, a question that would unravel her entire illusion in front of everyone she held dear. I leaned back, waiting, watching, and when the time came, I simply smiled. "Let's play a game," I said, my voice calm, almost amused. "Who can guess my wife's favorite hotel?" The air in the dining room changed in an instant. Conversation slowed, laughter quieted, and a hush fell over the table. For a brief moment, the only sound was the soft clink of silverware against plates. Then, as if the weight of my words had taken a few extra seconds to fully register, all eyes turned to Vanessa. She froze. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in subtle ways only I would have noticed. The delicate way she had been swirling her wine came to an abrupt halt. Her grip on the glass tightened just slightly, just enough for the tendons in her hand to strain beneath her flawless skin. The confident, effortless smile she had worn all evening flickered. So fast, so slight, that if I hadn't been watching for it, I might have missed it. But I saw everything. A second passed, then another, and still she said nothing. "Vanessa?" Her mother's voice cut through the silence, gentle but questioning. "Oh, that's an easy one, isn't it? You and Daniel travel so much. Surely you have a favorite." Vanessa blinked. The moment stretched unbearably. And then, just like that, she forced out a laugh. It was light, casual, just the right amount of amusement, just the right touch of playfulness. If I hadn't been waiting for this exact reaction, I might have thought nothing of it. "Oh, darling," she said, shaking her head as she reached for my hand across the table. "What a strange question. I don't think I even have a favorite hotel, do I?" Her fingers squeezed mine. The warmth of her skin might have once been comforting. Now, it was simply an act of desperation, a silent plea for me to move on, to let it go, to not push any further. I let the moment linger. Then I chuckled, shaking my head. "Come on, Ness," I said smoothly, watching her closely. "Of course you do. We've stayed in so many wonderful places over the years. I just thought it would be fun to see if anyone else knows." Her sister laughed, leaning forward. "Oh, this is fun. Let me guess, the Ritz in Paris?" Vanessa exhaled, just barely, as if she had been holding her breath. She turned to her sister, seizing the opportunity. "Oh, that's a good one, but I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite." I smiled, swirling my own drink lazily. No. She turned to me now, something wary behind her eyes. "Why do you ask?" I shrugged. "No reason." I let my gaze linger just a little longer than necessary, then turned back to my plate. The tension in her shoulders remained, the stiffness in her posture unrelenting, but she had convinced herself that she had managed to escape unscathed, that the moment had passed. She had no idea. What I had just done was not an accusation. It was not a challenge. It was merely a seed planted carefully, in the middle of a dinner table filled with her closest family and friends, and seeds, when left in the right conditions, had a way of growing. The game had begun. I let the conversation shift naturally, allowed Vanessa time to recover, to reassemble the mask she had almost let slip, but every so often, when she wasn't looking, I caught the way others at the table were glancing at her, the way her mother's brows knitted together in thought, the way her sister's laughter had quieted ever so slightly, the way her father, a man of few words, now studied her with something close to suspicion. Vanessa might have been convinced that she had regained control of the evening, but the damage had already been done. She had hesitated. She had shown fear, and worst of all, she had no idea that I wasn't finished yet. The night carried on, but Vanessa wasn't the same. She tried, of course, tried to laugh, tried to relax, tried to push past the unease that had crept into her bones the moment I spoke, but I could see it in the way she kept touching her necklace, running the delicate chain between her fingers as if grounding herself. I could hear it in the slight tremor of her voice when she spoke, that barely perceptible waver she hoped no one noticed. The game was working. She still thought she was playing against me, that this was a battle between husband and wife. But she was wrong. She wasn't playing it against me at all. She was playing against herself. And she was losing. The dinner plates had been cleared, the conversation had shifted to lighter topics, and yet Vanessa's mind wasn't in the room anymore. Her smiles came a little too late, her laughter a fraction too sharp, as if overcompensating. She was unraveling, and I wasn't even trying. That was the beauty of it. I didn't need to accuse her of anything. I didn't need to raise my voice, to slam my fist on the table, to demand an explanation. That would have been easy for her. Easy to dismiss, easy to play the victim, easy to turn the moment into a scene where I was the unhinged husband and she was the wounded wife. But this was slow, creeping dread, the kind that settled in the back of her mind, gnawed at her with every stolen glance, with every passing minute where she didn't know what I knew, where she wasn't sure if I was done or if there was more coming. And that uncertainty, that was worse than any confrontation. The moment I had been waiting for arrived soon enough. Vanessa excused herself from the table, smiling politely, saying she needed to step away for a moment. I knew exactly where she was going before she even took a step. Her phone, she had left it in her purse, hanging on the back of her chair, untouched all evening. But now that the unease had settled deep into her skin, now that her mind was racing with possibilities, with doubt, with fear, she couldn't resist. She needed to check. She needed to see if there was something she had missed, if there was any reason for my question, if somehow, some way I had uncovered the truth she had so carefully hidden. I watched as she walked out of the dining room and into the hallway, her movements controlled but hurried, as if she didn't want to seem too eager, but also couldn't get there fast enough. The moment she was gone, her sister leaned in, lowering her voice. That was weird, right? Her mother gave her a sharp look, but I saw it in her eyes. She had noticed too. I merely smiled, taking a sip of my drink. What was... Vanessa's sister scoffed, shaking her head. Come on, Dan, you know exactly what. That whole thing with the hotel, the way she reacted? I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. I just thought it'd be a fun little game. Her father, silent all evening, finally spoke. She didn't think it was fun. His voice was low, even, but pointed. I let the statement hang in the air, offering no defense, no further explanation, because I didn't need to. Vanessa was going to do all the work for me. It didn't take long before she returned. I glanced at her, just in time to see the way she smoothed her dress, the way she forced a breath before stepping back into the room. She had checked. I could see it in the way her eyes flitted toward me, searching, assessing. Had I done something? Had I left any trace? Was this paranoia or something real? She didn't know. And that was the best part. She settled back into her chair, reaching for her wine with just a touch too much urgency. I let a few beats of silence pass before I spoke again, my voice light, amused, as if I were still simply making conversation. You were gone a while. Everything okay? She nearly choked on her sip, recovering just in time to nod. Yes, of course. Just freshening up. I tilted my head slightly. Oh? Thought maybe you were checking your phone. There. The slightest pause, the quickest intake of breath before she forced a casual smile. Why would I need to do that? I smiled, set my glass down with deliberate care. No reason. The tension in the room was no longer subtle. It was thick, suffocating, wrapping itself around Vanessa like a noose. She could feel it. Everyone could feel it. And I wasn't done yet, because she still had hope. Hope that this was just a coincidence, that she was imagining things, that she could still regain control. But soon, that hope would be gone. And when it was, the real fun would begin. Vanessa was unraveling, but she was still trying to keep the mask in place. I could see the war waging inside her, the desperate attempt to hold on to control, to convince herself that my question had been nothing more than an innocent joke. But she couldn't shake the feeling, the creeping suspicion that something wasn't right. She kept sneaking glances at me as if trying to decipher whether I knew something or if she was simply being paranoid. The problem was, paranoia and guilt looked the same on someone who had something to hide. And Vanessa? She had plenty to hide. I let her stew in it. There was no need to press further, no need to push. The best kind of unraveling happened slowly, strand by strand, until the person pulled themselves apart. And that was exactly what Vanessa was doing. Dinner was winding down, people getting up, stretching, gathering plates. Some made their way to the living room, others lingered at the table, chatting idly. Vanessa, however, seemed unsure where to go. Usually she was the center of any gathering, flitting from person to person, engaging effortlessly. But now she was stuck, hovering near her chair as if unsure whether to move or stay. I decided to help her. Rising from my seat, I stepped beside her and placed a hand on the small of her back, the way I always did at these gatherings. It was a casual touch, one I had done 100 times before. But tonight, it made her flinch. "Interesting. You seem distracted," I murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. She turned to me, eyes widening just a fraction before she caught herself. "No, not at all." I gave her a slow nod. "Good. Wouldn't want you to miss out on the fun." Then, before she could say anything, I turned away, leaving her standing there. She hated that. Vanessa thrived on control, on reading people, on anticipating reactions. But she couldn't read me. Not tonight. Tonight, every step I took, every glance I gave, was a carefully placed move in a game she didn't even realize she was playing. Until now. A few moments later, I saw her slipping away again. Obviously not dramatically, just a quiet retreat toward the hallway, the one leading to the patio, the one where she could be alone for a moment, could breathe. I let her think she was getting away. Then I followed. I found her standing near the edge of the patio, her phone in her hands, screen illuminated in the dim evening light. She was typing something. Fast, urgent. "What's so important?" I asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. She nearly dropped the phone. "Jesus, Daniel," she breathed, pressing a hand to her chest. "You scared me." "Did I?" I stepped forward, my gaze flicking down to the phone she was now clutching a little too tightly. "Didn't mean to." She let out a breathy laugh, forced and uneven. "You're acting strange tonight." I tilted my head. "Am I?" "Yes." She licked her lips, trying to steady herself. "I don't know what's going on with you, but if something's wrong, just say it." I stared at her for a moment, watching as she braced herself, waiting for the accusation, the fight, the moment she could defend herself. But I didn't give it to her. Instead, I smiled. "I was just coming to check on you." Her face faltered. She hesitated, then quickly shook her head. "I just needed some air." "Of course." I glanced at her phone again, still in her hand, still clenched, like a lifeline. She noticed and quickly tucked it into the pocket of her dress. Why I didn't say anything? Silence stretched between us. The cool night air brushed against my skin, but I could see the way she was starting to sweat. She needed to leave. I could see it in the way her eyes darted toward the door, the way she kept shifting her weight like she was waiting for an excuse, an opportunity to escape. I decided to give her one. "Come back inside when you're ready," I said, smoothly, stepping back toward the house. "Everyone's waiting for you." She nodded too quickly, too eager for the conversation to be over. I walked away, and the moment I did, I heard it, the sound of her phone unlocking. She couldn't help herself. She needed to check, needed to see if there was something to worry about, if there was any clue that she had been caught, and I had just given her enough reason to spiral. By the time she came back inside, her entire demeanor had shifted. She was too stiff, too controlled, as if holding herself together by sheer force of will. But it didn't matter, because by now I had let her paranoia consume her. I had let her mind run wild with possibilities. And tomorrow, when she woke up, she wouldn't be sure whether she was safe or if the walls were closing in. She wouldn't know if I had proof. She wouldn't know if I was planning something. And that uncertainty, that was going to be her downfall. The night had ended, but Vanessa's torment had only just begun. She barely spoke on the drive home. Normally, she'd fill the silence with small talk, recounting the evening's best moments, laughing about some joke her sister had made, or complaining about the food. But tonight she was different. She was stiff, preoccupied, lost in thought. Her fingers drummed lightly against her thigh. a nervous habit she didn't even realize she had. I didn't break the silence. I let her sit in it. Let her thoughts consume her. When we pulled into the driveway, she was quick to unbuckle her seatbelt, eager to retreat into the house, to be alone with her phone, to check and double-check whatever messages she had sent or received that evening. She had already looked once on the patio, but paranoia was a hungry beast. It was never satisfied with just one glance. I followed her inside, moving at my usual pace. She, on the other hand, moved with forced casualness, trying too hard to seem normal. She slipped off her heels, set her purse down on the entryway table, and then stretched, feigning exhaustion. "I think I'll head to bed," she said, her voice light but her eyes watchful. I nodded, shrugging off my jacket. "Go ahead." She hesitated just for a second as if expecting me to say more. When I didn't, she turned and walked toward the bedroom, closing the door behind her with practiced ease. I waited 1 minute, 2, 5. Then, right on cue, the door opened just slightly. A crack, no more. She was listening, trying to hear where I was, trying to confirm if I was coming to bed or if she had the privacy she so desperately needed. I made my way into the kitchen, opening the fridge as if looking for something. The sound of a bottle clinking against the shelf filled the quiet space. The moment she heard it, the bedroom door clicked shut again. She thought she had time. I gave her 10 minutes. Then, without a sound, I walked down the hall and stopped outside the bedroom door. I didn't knock. I didn't move. I just listened. The soft rustling of sheets, the occasional tap of fingers against a screen, a sigh, and then a quiet, almost imperceptible whisper. "Come on, come on." I smiled to myself. She was checking. Again. Scrolling through messages, revisiting old conversations, looking for any sign that she had slipped up, that there was something, anything that could indicate she'd been caught. But she wouldn't find anything? Not yet. I let her have her moment, let her believe she was still one step ahead. Then finally, I turned the knob and stepped inside. She gasped, startled, locking her phone in a flash and shoving it under the pillow, as if she were a teenager caught sneaking out. I raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" She forced a smile, sitting up against the headboard. "Of course. Just about to sleep." "Good." I stepped toward the closet, undoing the buttons on my shirt. "Busy day tomorrow." She hesitated, watching me carefully. I nodded, slipping the shirt off. "Yeah. Thought I'd stop by that hotel you love so much, the one you couldn't name earlier." Her entire body went rigid. I didn't look at her as I continued. I was thinking about booking us a weekend there, to reconnect. Her breathing had changed, shallow, uneven. That's a nice thought." I turned, then meeting her wide, fearful eyes. "Yeah, I thought so too." Silence. Her lips parted, but no words came. Because she knew. She knew this wasn't over. And she knew, without a doubt, that she was no longer in control.